Ahoy, Uta.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm fine. I am ready for wine. I've been studying Bordeaux all day, so I'm ready for a drink.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I am as well, even though it's only lunchtime, our time here. But
Yay.
yeah, ready for it. I feel like in quarantine rules, it's kind of like airport rules where drinking in the morning is totally acceptable. So I'm going with that. But
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. It's funny, like all the interviews I've been doing recently, everyone has been talking about how all the wines are really good breakfast wines. So I'm like,
yes,
this
yeah.
country is just fascinating to me.
And I've seen more and more videos of like cocktails or, wine glasses pouring, a single serve is like an entire bottle.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah.
all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, totally. So everything's good by you on your ends back in the States? You've got a
Yes,
cat?
my cat has decided to join us, so I apologize.
That's okay.
This is
I've got two, so they might climb up on me too.
the joys of being home, right? You like kind of don't think about it until all of a sudden there's a cat walking through the camera. Great, it's
Right,
awesome.
right.
So ask the question again.
So yeah, you're doing okay at home, quarantine, same old thing?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I mean, obviously, we all like. I was laughing with some folks last week where I didn't realize how much I miss just being at like the town pub down the street, like our little dive bar that's like 2 miles away. I'm like, all I want to do is sit there and people watch. It's all I want to do. I don't even
I
need to
know.
eat. I don't need to do it. I just want to sit there. I don't know if that makes, if that's a problem, but yeah, it's good. It's just, I think everyone's getting a little cabin fever and a little stir crazy, so we're all trying to find things to keep ourselves entertained.
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
How about you
Yeah.
guys over there? So in Czech Republic, have you guys lifted anything? Are you
So things
trying to go
lifted
back at all?
yesterday. So
Okay.
stores have opened, but really small, like smaller kind of specialty shops have opened up, like hardware stores. Wine shops have been open because they're considered food. Again, I
Yep.
love this country. So wine shops are open. I think I talked to a few wineries, and some of them are opening like mid-May for
Okay.
like tastings inside the winery. But still,
Yeah.
at this point, I think things are still. I mean, people are selling wine kind of by the cellar door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
less interaction, I guess. But
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah,
good. At least it's kind of starting to open up and normalize again. The United States, I mean, as you know, the United States is 50 separate unions and decision makers all on their own. So everybody is state by state. So it's a little different here depending on where you live. But a couple of southern states have started to open up some of the restaurants and other businesses. And
mhm,
where we are in the Northeast, they're still being pretty conservative because, with New York concentration and Boston, they're just being a little bit more conservative here. So we haven't had any
sure.
lifting yet where we are, but across the United States, there's definitely starting to see some of it. So it's interesting to see how it's going. But and same thing here. Our wine stores have luckily been open. So obviously a lot of the larger ones have been pretty busy, but some of the smaller ones, it's still just tough to get around, right? Because you
Yeah.
have to have, few people at a time. A lot of them are by appointment only. So yeah, it's been interesting here, definitely.
Yeah. And you're remind me, so let me introduce myself and I'll introduce you too. I
Sure.
neglected to do that. I apologize. So
We
I'm
just got right into it. We're like old friends now.
I know we're just chatting.
Yeah.
So I'm Arielle. I run Civil Wines. I'm from New York, but I live in Brno. I've lived here now like 16 months. I love Moravian wine. I love talking about wine. I love educating people about wine. And I've been doing these wine videos, and that's how I kind of connected up with you, Amanda. So this is Amanda Wilson, who is a co-business owner of Ahtel Wines, import business in the US of Moravian wine. So it was like a
Yeah.
blessing that we connected. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for taking the time. It's like
No,
lunchtime for
absolutely.
you. So
Thank
yeah, thanks for
you.
taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. I mean, anytime I get a chance to talk about wines, I mean, the joke is I can probably talk for an hour without anybody prompting me because it's just I mean, we've been doing this for 3 years now. So it's myself and my business partner. We've been, I would say, officially in business for 3 years, but obviously there was a lot of work beforehand that we did in terms of research. So we smuggled wine over before we could legally bring it over. But there was a lot of, market testing and sharing and just like talking to a lot of people to figure out what it was, like, why they didn't know about wines from Czech Republic or Moravia, and if there's an interest level there, right? So a little background about myself and my business partner. We're actually both marketers by trade. So we met over a decade ago now, working in marketing for one of the software startups in Boston. And we've been friends ever since. And so we traveled all over the world together. We were kind of passport buddies. We just wanted more stamps in our passport. And one of our trips was Prague to Vienna. So thus the moral imperative is to stop in Moravia and drink some wine.
Go wine tasting.
Yeah, exactly. And, for us, it was really interesting because the wines are brilliant. I mean, and, you see wines in different regions. You go to Napa in the United States, or even like Finger Lakes in the United States, or other, lesser known regions in Europe. And there's good wine everywhere. But we were really just fascinated how little we were aware, and we considered ourselves, pretty, maybe not savants, but like we drank, decent amounts of wine, and we traveled, and we just really didn't know anything about it. It was really interesting to us from like a market perspective of like, why is that? What's the deal? What's going on? So yeah, we talked to a lot of people and did a lot of research and realized that there just really isn't a lot, even outside Czech Republic, right? I think more and more in Europe, you're seeing more. You'd probably know more than me, but you're starting to see more Moravian wine. But even when I was traveling, I was working for a company out of Amsterdam at the time, and even in that area, you just can't find it. So so we kind of almost took it as like a marketing challenge. We're like, all right, there's a really good product. Right. There's a brand there that no one knows about. So, self-servingly, we get to drink great wine in the process. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. So then, 3 years later, fast forward today, and here we are. So.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, I just want everyone to know about this region. I want everyone to know how amazing the wines are, how nice the people are. I mean, I have never come across winemakers who help each other so much and who form this community. And it's amazing. It's so encouraging. And it's this little pocket of Central Europe. And I mean, fantastic growing conditions, amazing climate for cool, like white grape varieties. And it's a little gem. I love that you have a kitty cat too. That's great.
He is so aggressive right now. Like, apparently he wants love right now, and I am not giving it to him. So he's like, you will demand attention. Right. Stereotypical. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, we fell in love immediately. First with the wines, obviously. So, I mean, it's kind of a funny story. Again, we were just American tourists when we kind of discovered these wines, but in Prague, and Heidi and I both drank beer, and so we were, totally, the perception is you're going to go to Prague and drink beer, which is fine. And we did, but I kind of got a little bored after a while of drinking beer after a couple of days, and so we're like having lunch in the square there, and I just said, whatever your house table wine, because of course I can't read the wine list, and there's nothing other than Czech wine on the list, and I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, I trust you, just bring me something. And that first glass, I was like, oh, that's quite good. Okay, maybe I lucked out.
And that was just house wine, which is awesome.
Exactly. I mean, I think they served it to me like in a, like a pint glass or something. Like, it wasn't even like a proper glass.
Pour. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so then like the next restaurant, kind of the same thing. I was like, all right, I'll try the house wine again. And and again, I was like, okay, no, this is really good. And I started asking lots of questions. And then that's kind of what started, us learning about it and understanding. And yeah, I just became, we met all of our winemakers, and even just in Prague, talking to people, everybody was very proud to talk about Moravian wine. Because I think in country, you guys, I think people are very proud and obviously aware, but outside of the country, people aren't probably asking much, right? So very happy to share with us all sorts of information. And then, you know, that just kind of started it. And then as we met the winemakers, I mean, you're right, they're just some of the most genuine, thoughtful people, working together. I mean, what they're trying to do in terms of improving on all levels of winemaking, right? From the vineyards to the wine cellars, everything. So
I'm going to carry you with me.
Yeah,
There's actually a wine delivery for me downstairs, but I have to get my husband.
Stop it.
It's a winery. Can you get Nest for there downstairs? Yep. Sorry. There's many wine deliveries during quarantine.
That's awesome.
So, yes. Apologize for that.
No, that's a good excuse to take a break. Absolutely. Go sign for your wine.
Tasting I've signed up for, and yes, but thank God I have my husband to take care of. Sorry,
no, it's perfect.
You know.
No, that's perfect.
Right, but
well,
I mean,
and apparently my cat wants us to drink some wine. So
yeah, absolutely. So
what did you get today?
When you were here in South Moravia, you discovered 3 wineries that are amazing, delicious. Like you found la crème de la crème.
Well, we think so. Yes.
Yeah. So I have one winery that you import. You have a different winery.
I do.
And so I will show you the world what I've got today. So I've got Brnožství Volažič, their Permitze Riesling Grinsky, Riesling 2016, from their Permitze plot in Pernana. It's fantastic Riesling. This country is known for Riesling. It is delicious. I mean, the color of this wine is golden. It is beautiful. So I'm very excited about this happening. And tell me about the other 2 that you have found.
Yeah, so the one I'm drinking today, when you mentioned that you found the Riesling from Volažič, I decided to pull out what I lovingly call the wine that started it all. So this is the Krasnohora Riesling Rinsky. I felt like we could, if we can't have the same bottle, we can at least have the same grape.
Right.
And the reason I talk about this wine as the wine that started it all is I was that typical American girl that didn't drink Riesling, right? Because to me, it was always very sweet. Even the off-dries were just too sweet for me. Americans' Rieslings, they just tend to err on the sweet side. So Heidi and I, when we first met the Krasnohora family, we stopped in, and the owner and vineyard manager, Merrick, let us in and very graciously, again, like, you know, brings out his whole like line of wines, and we're tasting, and it's late on a Wednesday, and he's going through, and then he's like, okay, you know, pour you the Riesling. And I look at Heidi and I'm like, I don't want to, I'm just not. And she's looking at me and she's like, this man opened his doors at 4 o'clock on Wednesday after like working in the vineyards, because it was just the beginning of the harvest, I think. So like clearly the man just wanted to go home, and instead he's like, oh, she's like, you're drinking the Riesling, Amanda, just drink it.
Love it. Love it.
And then of course one sip and I was like in love. And I became obsessed with this wine and started looking for it all over the place, and I couldn't find it. And so that's kind of my, you know, reasoning of why I say kind of this wine started it all. So this one is a little bit more, a little lighter. It has a little like flecks of green almost in it, which I love. But very typical, I think, a nice, dry, minerally Riesling that I've now just become obsessed with, and it's just kind of like my go-to. So, so I was thrilled to be able to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the family, the Krasnohora family, the Viberals. They're just fantastic. Everyone works together. They're all doing biodynamic farming. I mean, just salt of the earth people. So I'm so happy that you found them. So can you talk to me a little bit about the market reaction when you're bringing in wines from South Moravia? Like, no, I didn't know that there was even wine here in this region before I came. And I work in wine. I was a buyer for a shop, really big shop. And they just never, except for some of the natural wines, the kind of the classics never made it through our door. So is it hard for you to find market, you know, people who want to try something from South Moravia?
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is, and for those of you who don't know, the United States alcohol industry is extremely complex.
Right.
Even though we're one country, it's 50 different states, so there's 50 variations on a rule. And we have what we call a 3-tier system, which I think some countries in Europe have something similar, but what that means is they break down the distribution to the supplier import level, so whoever's providing the product. And then there's a middle tier of whoever is distributing it to the retailers, who's then going to bring it to the consumer. So there's various like layers before anybody can actually get their hands on a bottle of wine. Again, myself and my business partner came from high-tech marketing, so I don't think we realize how utterly complex the laws and regulations in the States are. But what that means is and I'm sorry, my cat is like walking on a keyboard here and trying to talk to people. He's being very aggressive today. So what that meant for us as we were doing our like market testing and stuff and sharing, even before we started bringing it in, people were fascinated. Not just fascinated with the wines themselves and the fact that there's something out there of that quality and that style that they hadn't had before, but the history of the region. And I mean, you know, Czech Republic was Czechoslovakia during my lifetime, right? Like during everybody's lifetime. So people remember this, right? So it's like a story that they have in their head that they can kind of relate to. So everybody is really, really interested in it. The challenge in the United States is we make it extremely difficult for the mere mortal to have access to any given bottle of wine, right? It has to go through like all these layers. So, you know, so we're taking that on as kind of our challenge, right? That's what we're working towards. So our focus is strictly to be on the import side and to represent the brand in the region and partner with distribution partners in each state, so that we can make sure that we're representing the brand in the region correctly, and that we have distribution partners who have the same kind of passion, the same kind of desire to educate and almost evangelize Moravian wine and the winemakers that we represent. So it's a little bit of a slower process than, you know, we were hoping for 3 years ago. But, you know, the partners we have found and the success that we've had has been great. It's done really well. Moravian wines do really well when they are in the market, because the minute someone tries it, they're blown away. I keep teasing Heidi every time I do a tasting. I'm like, you need to get a video camera and like just get people's expressions, because I don't know what they think I'm going to pour in their glass, but they take a sip and they're just like stunned at how awesome it is. So that's super fun for me every time we do it. So it's just, you know, we got to get more access for folks to be able to, you know, enjoy more of these wines. So.
Right, and more education about Central Europe in general, I think. I mean, it's a region that's so, like you were saying, so rich in history. There's been vines here since the 14th century, but you know, of course, the commercialized privatization of wine industry has only been, you know, 30 years or so. But there's just so much fantastic white wine here. I mean, there's red wine here for sure too, and some great bottles I've had, but I mean, Riesling here is fantastic, and Welch Riesling I think is really going to be the up and coming star of this country. Grapes like Pavlova, I think they're so aromatic and fun and so different than the typical Sauvignon Blanc from Napa or Chardonnay, or, you know, something just so run of the mill kind of. I think these wines are really unique.
No, and they hit all the like major trend lines for the U.S. market, right? People are becoming more curious, right? They want to experience regions that they haven't experienced before. There's much less brand loyalty. There's still a pricing consideration, right? People still have this whole like, I don't want to spend more than $10 for a bottle of wine. You know, those guys aren't my market, but you know, but there is that curiosity level that people are interested in that. People are starting to err on the more natural, less processed, and ultimately a little bit drier. There's so much sweet wine in the United States. And when I say sweet, I just mean even a dry wine for other palates is going to err on the side of like fruity, juicy, a hint of off dry. You know, so I think the wines, the white, to your point, the white wines in Moravia are hitting a lot of those trend lines in the United States that that it's just a great fit, and we've seen it every time we pour a glass for someone. So
and you've had Andre from Krasna Hora you're in New Hampshire, is that right?
I'm in Massachusetts right now.
You're in
Yeah,
Massachusetts. Okay.
business started in New Hampshire, and then I moved to Massachusetts in December. So,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
but all the little New England states are about this big on the
Right.
map, so it's fine. It's all the same. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what was the reaction when you had? I mean, it's always nice to have someone from the region come over, but like, what was the
Yeah,
reaction with people and meeting someone from South Moravia? How did that go?
yeah. Oh, it's been fantastic. So he's come over, I think 3 times now. He
Oh,
tries
oh
to get
wow, I
over
didn't
here.
realize. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he tries to come out at least every year. So, which again, going to the people of the region, I mean, everyone has been super supportive about what we're trying to do here, right? Like, I think all of our winemakers understand no one in the United States is really asking for Moravian wine yet. To
Sure.
your point, some of the
Yeah.
like natural winemakers, there's a little bit of awareness in some niche groups, but all of our winemakers have been super supportive, and Andre in particular has made the trip over here a few times now. And what we'll do is we typically do one of the big trade shows with him. So like this past year, we were at Vinexpo in New York City with him, and this year we actually have partnered with the Embassy of the Czech Republic. So we were able to partner with them to bring our winemakers along with doing the quick math here, along with 6 other winemakers from Moravia to have a pavilion in the Vinexpo show, which was the first time that Moravia had ever been represented, or Czech wines had ever been represented as like a wine region.
Wow.
So it was really cool to see, like wines of the Czech Republic, and have this like flagship kind of stand and everything.
Awesome.
That we also had a master class, so we were able to actually taste a wine of all the winemakers that were there. So we were able to really present like a spread of different styles and varieties and things. And we had so many people come up to us afterwards and just thank us because they just were unaware. So it was so that was a great experience. And so then after that, we took Andre up to New Hampshire. Since we have some of our longest clients up there, since that's where we started, we did a few wine dinners with him, took him on some sales calls, worked with one of our distributor partners, basically didn't let him sit still for like 3 more days.
I mean, you're on a
Poor guy.
like, you're on a sales trip. You can't sit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, you're here. Like, you're booked. You're booked. Yeah. But it was great. And every time, he's been able to share his story with people or work with, like one of my favorites is when we do wine dinners, because it's interesting to see what the chefs do pairing Moravian wines, because it's not, there's no rules, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, you know how to pair champagne and you know how to pair like a French Burgundy, like,
Right. How do you pair an old Riesling?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
seeing him and his reactions to like the pairings, and, the chefs are always really curious of his thoughts, like, how did we do? And they've always done we've had some fantastic meals and some fantastic pairings, and they're really unique because the flavors just, it's a combination that you've most likely never had before. So Andre was really, great in working with all of our establishments for the wine dinners, and did a whole bunch of tastings with us, and yeah, people love hearing the story. I mean, I obviously, like I said, could talk about it for the hour without any prompting, but hearing it from them and what they're what they've lived through the last like few decades, it's just fascinating to us in America, who our history is a little different than European history, right? Like, we're very young, and so nothing. This is a very different perspective on things like that. So yeah, he's been fantastic supporting us and coming over every year or so.
Yeah. The third missing link in the chain is Gallo Winery as well.
Yeah,
And so that's actually
absolutely.
how we connected.
It is not on this particular wine, but that's the Gala label.
Oh, nice. Oh, I
Yeah.
love Gallo's wines. I'm such a fan. I think I love their Hermes Welch Riesling. It is to die for. It is so beautiful.
I know your video on that one was making me so jealous because I don't have that one here in the States, but it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah. So can you talk about how, I guess, you found out about me, about Civil Wines?
Yeah, so we actually, when we started importing, we started working with Krasnahora first because we had just met them first, and as I said, my Riesling is the one that started it all.
And
so
you just
I
like
became,
knocked on their door. Like, there was no appointment. It was just like, Hey,
No,
wine.
2 American girls at like 4 o'clock on Wednesday during harvest because we're dumb. Like, I mean, it was so awkward, but they were so great. They were so great.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, so after we, went through the process and decided, okay, we're really going to do this,
yeah.
we actually asked the Krasnahora guys because their wines were so well received over here in the, market testing we were doing. And we didn't, I mean, we knew, superficially, we knew some of the big like winemakers and we knew some of the other, options in Moravia, but we just asked them and we were like, who do you drink when you're not drinking your own wine, right? And Gala was one of the first ones that they actually recommended to us. So we got introduced to Elżbieta and Jaromir Gala through the Krasnahora family. And same thing, I mean, once we had their wines, we were stunned.
Blown away.
They just are this lovely, elegant, they were tremendous. So that's how we got introduced to them. And so we've brought over a few of their wines. One of the things I love about them is they do sparklings. And so their sparkling wines have done really well and get really well received over here. And when we were at the Vinexpo show in New York in March, Gala, both of the Gala family were with us, and Elżbieta actually sent me
to New York as well.
They did. They made the trip over. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So when they were here, she actually sent me the video that you had done of the Welsh Riesling, because she wasn't sure if I had seen it. Because we also, in full disclosure, we were trying to get video of her while we were at the show, and of course, like the sound in the background was awful. And she's like, you don't need to video me. Like, look at this one instead." So she pointed us. It was very sweet. It was very sweet. But yeah, so that's how, when I saw your video and saw what you were doing, obviously like totally aligned, and love everything that you have out there, because what you're writing and how you write it about Moravia, and having just, a little bit of an American perspective helps so much with what we're trying to do. So I think that's kind of how we got hooked up. So
yeah. It's funny. I actually got your email. It was my last night in Morocco. I was visiting Morocco with my mom, and I saw your email come through. I'm like, whoa, the world is really like super small. It was such a surprise. But it's interesting you mentioned the sparkling wine. So that's something I definitely want to hit on. So, I mean, sparkling wine is such a big market. I think people are looking for things that aren't champagne, but can give you that really great quality and something kind of unique. Like, so which sparkling wine from Gala are you bringing in?
See if we can get that on camera.
Oh, they're Chardonnay.
So
nice.
The one we currently have in inventory is their 2015 sparkling Chardonnay Extra Brut. And I mean, this is my favorite champagne. I mean, above French champagne, like this is what I go to. This is my go-to. Right. Everybody has a similar reaction to it. It has very, very fine bubbles. It has the right balance of just a little bit of like citrus to it and acidity that balances the like breadiness and yeastiness that you get more in like a traditional champagne. And the color is brilliant. It's just this bright straw yellow, beautiful color in it. So that one has been kind of a fan favorite as well, because just like, I mean, people haven't had Moravian wine. When they see sparkling Moravian wine, they're just like stunned. So, so it's done fairly well.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I know when I was selling, people were always asking like, oh, I just don't want to spend $60 on champagne, but do something that's like $40 and under kind of thing. And I would lean them towards these weird sparkling wines, and they love them. I mean, I think it's great to have that option. So what other wines? I know you mentioned the Krasnahora. Some of the wines there are doing quite well. Are there like fan favorites kind of that are hitting it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're, in full disclosure, we've been learning a lot the last 3 years, right? So we're seeing kind of what people are reacting to. And what I love about the 3 winemakers that we are representing currently is that they all fit a specific part of our portfolio and a specific part of the market. Krasnahora, as you mentioned, they're following biodynamic, principles in the vineyards, and they're, erring on the side of a very natural. They even have this. Let's see if I can grab one. The Blanca is usually easier. I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but
oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, they have three wines that they're doing in these new kind of like fun, kind of edgy labels.
And is it screw cap too?
Are they? I'm sorry?
Are those bottles under screw cap?
Yes, they are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, super easy. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So those are like kind of like intro to natural wines, kind of what they're doing. So Krasnohora has really kind of fit that that bill of people who really want to have something that's much more natural, very terroir driven, like that whole scene. And their price point is great for the U.S. for the U.S. market. Pretty much everything we have for them is roughly $20-$25 or under. So so that really works well in the United States. And then for Gala, their wines are really this, like, I keep using the word elegant because that's all like every time I drink one of their wines, like I kind of feel fancy.
Yeah. They're so complex. I mean, they're so rich and textured.
They're so rich, and there's so many layers, and there is a complexity. I mean, even their rosé is one of my favorites, where it's a Merlot Frankovka.
Oh, nice.
Blend. Which for the United States is actually fairly unique. Like you don't see Blanc-Frankish and Merlot blends very often, let alone in a rosé. But even this rosé, when I pour it for folks, it's the same thing. You get that fruitiness from the rosé that you want in a rosé, but there's like this structure to it and this complexity to it that it'll totally stand up to a meal. Like it doesn't just fade away, and there's just this there's this elegance to their whole line of wines, and then with the sparklings on top of it that just kind of like adds to it as well. So they've kind of fit that niche in the portfolio. And then for Volagique, he does so much with the indigenous grapes and the local regional grapes. So we carry a couple of Welsh Rieslings of his. We have a Mueller Thurgau, Gruner Veltliner, and his expressions of them. And oftentimes, as you know, like he'll have various Welsh Rieslings, right, depending on the vintage and all that. So we have so many options to like bring in versions of the local grapes for people that for those who are really interested in trying something new. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have to explain Welsh Riesling every single time I pour it. Every single time.
Not Riesling.
It's not Riesling. They don't believe me.
No, it's definitely, I mean, when I came here, I saw Riesling Flaschke, and I was like, oh, it's Riesling, but it's some kind of Riesling. I've spent so much time researching these grapes. So I'm
you and me both. You and me both.
Your world, I totally get it. It's been a challenge for sure. But it's been great. I mean, Riesling is really like the grape that represents South Moravia, especially like the Mikolov area with the limestone soil. It really takes well to it.
You mean the Kingdom of Welsh Riesling?
Oh, that's awesome! I love it. I haven't seen that before. Oh,
no, I love it. That's one of the Volagique's marketing materials that we have that they were able to put together in English, and I love that because I also love the word kingdom for Moravia, because especially to like us in America, it's very I always call it this fairy tale land, right? Like you're driving in the middle of nowhere and it's all this like vast lands and fields and rolling hills, and then there's a castle and there's spire, right? I mean, it's just a very fairy tale kind of like place for folks, from America, where the oldest thing we have is a few hundred years old, right? So I think the Welsh Riesling Kingdom is perfect for that whole Mikolov area and everything. And I totally agree with you. I think the Welsh Riesling, because there's so many expressions of it too. I mean, there's they can err on the side of sweet, they can be bone dry, they get a nice fruitiness to it, right? So it's kind of a people-pleasing grape. Like you can find a Welsh Riesling for almost everybody. So it's been fun to introduce that to people.
Yeah, I know that when I was selling, sweet wine was always, people are really, really, really hesitant with sweet wine. There is a lot of sweet wine here, but it's interesting that you're bringing in more of the drier styles of wine, more of the suke dry wines here, which is, I mean, I think there's plenty of great dry wine here, that there's more than enough to go around. And so do you sell mainly to restaurants, retail, shops, hotels? Like, I mean, it's quarantine right now, so I think every business is kind of shuttered. But what's your main business sales point, let's say? Yeah,
so we're really, as I mentioned, the United States market is complex, and it has all these tiers, and there's 50 variations of it, right? So every state we have to treat as its own market. and kind of decide how we're going to go to market in that state. So, so it's kind of hard to answer that question because it kind of depends state by state.
Okay.
And we've been very interested in testing different channels and different distribution models to kind of see what's going to work best. You know, on one hand, we're very partial to being as close to the consumer as possible because, in our, you know, humble opinion, no one's going to evangelize Moravian wine as much or as passionately as we are, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to be as close to the consumer as possible. But at the same time, in order to get any kind of scale and any kind of volume, we have to find, you know, distribution partners in the middle. Yeah. So yeah. So New Hampshire is an interesting market where every time I say that, people are like, there's Czech wines in New Hampshire. And I'm like, well, yeah, part of it is opportunistic since I was living there, but it's a control state. So what that means is the state actually owns the distribution part of the model. So in New Hampshire, we are in all of the New Hampshire state liquor stores. So you can go to any of the main, consider it almost like a chain store, right? They're all over the highways, they're in every town, and you can go into one of their stores and ask for a Czech wine, and we're in their warehouse. So it makes access in New Hampshire actually a little bit easier than some of the other states that don't have that kind of a model. Mm-hmm. So we've actually seen in New Hampshire both retail and restaurants doing really well. We actually just got a couple of, actually one of the new hotels in one of the main towns, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just took on By the Glass of one of the Krasnohora wines, which is super fun. Yeah, and it's the new like Swank Hotel, and they got the Gewürztraminer, which I love. That's the wine they picked to go by the glass because it's just so. It'll do really well there. So it's been good, and because we're so close, we're able to be in market, and we do a lot of tastings and we do a lot of events. Back when we could do tastings and events, right. So that's kind of one example, and then another example is we actually do have another side of the business that we're actually doing a direct-to-consumer e-commerce website where people can go online, order, and we'll ship them bottles of Czech wine. The trick is we can only do that in 2 markets right now. We do that in Washington, D.C. and Florida. Because they're the 2, really? I know, it sounds so random, but licensing and compliance-wise, they are the easiest to go to market to be able to do that. Most other states have a whole lot of direct-to-consumer layers built in that make it really expensive and just difficult to do it. So we haven't approached some of the other states yet because we're kind of testing that model in those markets to see how that goes, to see you know, how what kind of volume, just what kind of response, because it's a little scary for me just to ship a bottle of wine to someone without being able to tell them about it.
Absolutely, yeah, especially Moravian wine that
exactly
needs an introduction. It needs love, you know.
Yeah, because if someone, you know, if they order a bottle of Riesling, I can guarantee you they're not expecting what's in this bottle.
Right. Absolutely.
So we have to do a lot of marketing up front, right? There's a lot of things we do both with the website and email marketing and just things like that, trying to, you know, educate and make sure people are knowing what's in the bottle when it comes to their door. So we're testing that approach as well. So I'll be honest, it's probably too early for us to say like which channel's working the best or, you know, which model's working the best. Yeah. As we're kind of investing in, you know, all of them and just trying to tackle each market individually so that we can see what success is there. And it'll likely be a blend as we grow, right? It'll be a blend of kind of, you know, all distribution models, which makes sense, I think. So.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's fascinating to know. I mean, there was like a big, we call it slow crow movement, the Slovenia, Croatia movement that kind of swept through the US like 2013, 14, 15. And it was these really peculiar wines and grape varieties like Malvasia and Plavac Mali and all of these odd grapes. And they're kind of like you got to put it in the person's hands and explain a little bit. But once they try it, they're really hooked and they want to try more. And like you were saying, I think this market is exploding with this curiosity of, I want to find that next up and coming region. And so just FYI, there are a ton of people doing Kvevery here, this like Georgian wine technique. It's huge. I mean, there's one winery I spoke with yesterday. I'm going to have them on. They have 21 Kveveries on their property. I mean, it's insane. there's such a movement towards this modern kind of throwback tradition winemaking.
Yeah.
And I think that's what America is really craving. I mean, they love California, but at the same time, there's like beautiful wine region no one knows anything about. And so I'm so happy that you're there to be educating people about.
We're trying. Yeah, we're trying. Well, and it's funny you say, like with the Qvevri, the calling that a new winemaking technique when it really is like the most original winemaking, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that personally, Heidi and I loved about Moravian wines, and I think other people kind of appreciate it as well, is a lot of the history of Moravian wine. Under occupation, there was so little they could do from an external, like technological advancement perspective, right? So, and I think Miroslav Volarzik actually talks a little bit about this, where, a lot of those traditions were passed through the family just, in their wine cellars, literally in their house, of like their own styles and what they like and all that. And then, come 1991, 92, they're able to, all of a sudden be winemakers again.
Right.
And it's still a very traditional method, a traditional way of doing business. Even the more modern winemakers still are just steeped in tradition, which for Americans, because Napa is so new, right? I mean, the Napa brand was built on innovation, technology, advancement, right? Like that's the whole Napa brand. And so I feel like, people are starting to, or not starting to, but have been really just intrigued with the whole, like that sense of tradition and how it impacts what they're actually drinking in the glass, right?
Right.
And Moravia is just a perfect example of that, which I think is another, piece of intrigue for people here. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge movement towards small winemaking, small batch winemaking, really using like these traditional techniques but so innovative. And I think it's such an exciting region that's just going to blow up. I'm so happy that you have these wineries, particularly because they are so different. I mean, from Volajik to Krasna Hora to Gala, you're right. I mean, you're covering each spot in your portfolio. Like it's amazing that you were able to find these three. I think they're so representative of the region. And
good.
And they're in their own right. I mean, so they've won awards here like crazy. So it's just so funny because you came here just knocking on people's doors, and I love it. I mean, you found some of the best wines here.
Very American of us, right? Like we just show up, knock on someone's doors, and decide we can do this. Like who thinks that we can do this?
Right, and just knock on people's doors until they don't want to answer. Yeah. That's how I feel like I've been living here. So all these winemakers, I've just been knocking on their door every day. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. Speak English with me. And no, but they've been so gracious to me. And so I'm glad that you had the same kind of reception that I did when I came here. And so you came here in 2015, 14? No, 12? Was it before then?
We've been over a few times now. Unfortunately, I think the last time we were there is about 1.5 years, 2 years ago now. So it was probably 2018 was the last time we were there.
Okay.
The first time we were there was probably 2014 or 2015. Okay. So yeah, we've been over a few times now. And you're right. And just funny side story to the whole hospitality that you see of the folks over there is Andre last year in 2019 was over for his whirlwind tour that we put him on,
right?
And we did a wine dinner with Krasna Hora Wines at one of the restaurants in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And so he met, a whole bunch of people, and this one couple later that summer, so it was in March, that summer decided to actually stop at the winery. And similar to us, they totally just stopped by. Wow. No appointment, nothing. But they stopped by and they were like, I don't know if you remember us, but we were at this wine dinner in New Hampshire. And they actually wrote a really sweet note, and they were just like, this whole family was so like, they just opened up their doors and opened up their arms, and you know, they met the whole family, and they had such a fantastic experience from that. And then they came back when we did a wine dinner at that same restaurant, and they came back again, and you know, so now they're like all old friends now, which is great. But but it's just a perfect example of the you know, of the camaraderie and just friendliness that everybody has over there. It's great. So
that's awesome.
yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to derail, but I thought that was kind of a funny anecdote to that.
I mean, it just showed like the hospitality here is incredible. I mean, I can't tell you how nice people have been here to me. And I mean, I was living in North Carolina. Like everyone's nice in North Carolina, but I mean, I come here and everyone's, you know, hey, come to this wine event, come to this tasting, come visit me in my cellar, and they're just explaining. They want people to know about their wines. I feel like there's this,
and it's genuine.
Yeah,
it's a genuine, you know, element that I feel like, you know, sometimes we feel missing. And it's just nice to see that there's communities there that still have that genuineness to it. That is great. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. I'm so happy you found this wine region. I just can't talk enough about it. Like you, I mean, I could talk about South Moravia for hours. I love it here. I'm never gonna.
This is why this works out really well. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna be.
Absolutely. Yeah. How is your wine? Have you had a sip? Your Riesling?
I did. And it is everything I remembered and everything I want it to be. It's actually, I kind of love it as a spring wine because it's just, it's got this brightness to it that just like makes me happy. I don't know. This wine just makes me happy. And so it's a good pick for, we've had a lot of rain here. It's been a very, very rainy, cold April. I don't know whether you guys have over there.
We actually need the rain in South Moravia.
Rub it in.
It's so dry. I think they had 4 millimeters of rain in the month of April. I mean, it's nothing, really nothing. So it's
oh my gosh,
yeah.
No, it rains like 5 out of 7 days every week, pretty much. So yeah. So it's nice to have a nice, bright, happy wine to help us.
Reminds me spring. It is spring, I guess. Yeah.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Right.
And hopefully we'll all be out enjoying our wines on the patios shortly, because I'm definitely missing that right now.
Is there any talk about quarantine kind of lifting where you're at the moment?
For Massachusetts, not so much. I mean, they're right now kind of determining what the criteria is to be able to lift some of that. Mm-hmm. So none of that has really been determined yet. But they're in those conversations right now. So, you know, I think we're a little behind, you know, where you guys are in Europe in terms of the curve and everything. So I don't anticipate us seeing anything changing for another couple of weeks at least. Yeah. And likely through May. So I'm hoping by June I'm out and about and drinking on patios all over the place.
Right.
I'm not gonna be able to wait.
Open, pouring Krasnohora Gewürztraminer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sharing it with everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
I really I admire what you have done in the U.S.
Oh, thank you.
Arabia. Really, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to come to a random wine region and say, I love these wines. I want everyone to know about them, and to do it. It's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Really.
Courage, crazy. It's, you know, a little bit of both. It's fine. But it's been an adventure for Heidi and I. I mean, we've learned a lot. We've met so many people. I mean, the other thing that we love is, I mean, besides the fact that we're kind of educating and evangelizing, which is, you know, from a marketer's perspective, like we love that. But being in the hospitality industry here in the United States is also, it's just great. I mean, like there's very few people who are drinking wine because they're cranky, right? Like they're like, wine is like bringing happiness and social, you know, a social element to people. And right. And so it's just, you know, being a part of that world and a part of that industry is, has been great for us as well. And so I think the Moravian story just fits so well into that it's been a lot of fun for us. So, yeah.
There's 850 wineries here. So, we've got a lot of work to do.
We have some work to do. Yeah, definitely.
I hope that when you come, I have some great winemakers I'd love for you to meet. So I will be here the next 2 years. So I know there's some of them watching actually right now. some natural winemakers and other consultants and stuff that I've worked and met with here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think they're really interested to hear how the American market has responded to South Moravian wine. Yeah, but like I was saying, I think there's this curiosity, especially to like Czechoslovakia. What was Czechoslovakia? And you know, we don't learn about it in school. I mean, I learned nothing about the Czech Republic, about anything.
Very little, yeah.
So
very little.
It takes so much education.
It's like a period of history that it was like too current to be in our history classes, but it wasn't like current events. It was like this weird, I don't know. It was like this weird point in time that, not a lot of Americans are like super familiar with it unless they were, you know, somehow related to the experience over there or something like that. But yeah, I think the U.S. market. I mean, there's the two pieces of it, right? There's the consumer piece and the draw and the acceptance on that level, and then there's just the complexity of the U.S. market, which is just complex. So, and you're seeing a lot of changes, right? There's a lot of new technologies and a lot of new companies that are in business to disrupt how alcohol is distributed in the United States. And my personal opinion is it does need a little bit of disruption, because otherwise I would have known about Moravian wine probably far sooner than, you know, when I did. And that's kind of a shame. But I think the region itself has definitely got all the criteria that that makes up, you know, the next exciting, you know, wine region. And I think a lot of people are starting to experience that. So
yeah, and what I like about this region too is that you have natural wine, but they don't taste bitter or astringent or tannic or kind of funky smelling. I mean, you have really clean wines, but done by families that have maybe 4 hectares of land, and they're using all you know, organic practices. And I think that's such a draw for Americans who want that small family winery. They want to see the family on their website, you know, they want to have that connection. I think this region just like marks all these boxes off that there's so much missing in the US from that. I mean, you have Italy and Spain and France, of course, and they're pumping out millions of bottles, but then you have these tiny pockets that are just kind of overlooked. And even in wine books and stuff, it's barely mentioned. But the production here, of course, I mean, I think somewhere I read they actually have to import wine because all of it's consumed here. Czechs drink a lot of breakfast wine is served. So that's
my people.
Oh, me too. Everyone, like I said, everyone I've been talking to is like, oh, this is a great breakfast wine. I'm like, what planet are you living in?
How did I miss that? Because I love this. Yes, I'm in on the breakfast wine. I'm in.
I can't tell you how many old women I've seen here drinking wine at like 9 o'clock in the morning with a piece of cake. Like, it's my heaven. I love it here. I want to.
Not even like a proper breakfast. That's awesome. Oh my God.
But yes,
I'm jealous.
So much wine is consumed here that they have so little to actually sell out. But I want them to like keep, you know, a couple dozen cases just to push out to America. I think there would be such a great response to the wines here. I think they're fantastic.
No, you're totally right. And I mean, we approached, you know, a couple of wineries, you know, way back when with, you know, hey, are you interested in exporting to the United States? And they were like, no, we don't have any wine left over to export. Like we sell everything out of our cellar. Right. And I, first of all, I love that. And I'm like, absolutely, that I don't want to jack that up. Right. Like you keep doing what you're doing, man. But you're totally right. Like, I think that's also an element of why you haven't seen so much in the US market, because I think people think you need big volume and you need, you know, to bring in a brand and you need to have, you know, 20 containers of this brand to go in and saturate. And it's just, you know, that's just not, A, that's not Moravian wine. And B, I don't think that's really what people are looking for right now, right? Like they want the little stories and they want, you know, they want to know what's impacting what's in the glass. The questions that I'm getting are, you know, way more in depth of like that story about what's happening to the wine than any, you know, it's not snobby. It's just like, you know, well, why does it do this or what, you know, and there's this curiosity that I think is just genuine for people over here that, that totally, like you said, kind of totally fits that. And I think, you know, what this year was really interesting with the Vinexpo partnership with the Czech embassy of, you know, other wine regions. I mean, when Heidi and I started doing this, one year Austria was one of the big regions represented at the show, right? So we met the director of the wine. They had a governmental entity for wine marketing outside of Austria, right? So it was all about marketing Austrian wine to other countries. Yep. I mean, they had, a designated government agency for this, right? So we met with the gentleman there and just to kind of hear what they were doing. We reached out to a couple different people at the Czech Republic and they're like, yeah, no, we don't do that. Right? It's just like, because everything has been in country. I mean, there's been no demand, no interest, no nothing. Yeah. So, for us, the partnership with the Czech Embassy has been really helpful kind of on that front to, at least on stateside, see what we can do from a, pull perspective, if it's not going to be, a push perspective, kind of like how Austria approached it. But, drafting off of things they did and, lessons learned and all that is kind of what we've been kind of playing around with. So yeah, there's the marketing of Moravian wine, Czech wine, Moravian wine, and each winemaker individually, and then, okay, now what's in my glass, right? So luckily, Heidi and I like the marketing part of it, right? We do a lot of blogging, we do a lot of events, we tell a lot of stories, and just try and share as much as we can with people, and we've just been very blessed and very excited at the response we've gotten. So it's been great. And yeah, we're looking forward to a busy couple more years. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm really hoping we'll get a chance to meet in South Moravia.
Oh yeah,
I will take you to my faves here in the region. So yeah,
yes, definitely.
It's fascinating. I'm so glad that this region has made it to the United States. Thank God. Some nice Volajik, some Krasnohora, some Gala. I mean, top winemakers. It's awesome. I'm so thrilled.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for joining me on here tonight.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm gonna ping some winemakers now and say, you want to have an American come in and talk to you a little bit, speak some English. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for having me. This has been super fun. And again, thank you for all that you do, because like I said, the more awareness and, content and education we can get out for folks of, what's going on in Czech Republic and in Moravia is just going to be helpful, and people are looking for it. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep going on it. I love educating people about this region. So the more I can do, the better. So yeah, awesome. Well, have a good day. I guess it's almost like 1 o'clock for you. So
I know. I still have a work day to go through. You enjoy your evening, chill out. I'll go back to work. It'll be fine. But thank you again. Thank you again. And I will have to end on my only Czech word that I know is nazdraví.
Nazdraví.
Cheers. Thank you, Arielle.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Take care.